Hello and welcome back to the College Football Fanatics podcast. Sorry. If you hear my dogs and bark in the background, I apologize. I can't do a lot about it. I'm at my family home at the moment, actually. So that's why my background looks a little different than it normally does. But in this episode, I'm really excited because it is the first episode of the or it is the first episode of this season for the College Football Fanatics podcast. Games start in just a few days, basically in less than, and I think it's in like a week or a week and a half. I have to look at what day the first game is. I think there's a couple of week 0 games. I think the first game is, I don't know, the 26th is the first game, so it's 4 days away. Yeah, so the 26th is the first game, so it's 4 days away. Really excited, and I hope you guys are going to be on this journey with me as we watch the rest of the season. We'll be talking about a lot of different things. We'll be going in depth in multiple teams and things like that. So I am very, very excited to get into this. And today we'll be talking about the AP Top 25. We'll talk about Jim Harbaugh. Sorry, not Joe Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh and his controversy and NCAA things. We'll also be talking. If we get to it, we might talk about a few games, but I'm not certain that I will get to it in the time that I have. So let's start at the top. Let's start at the top. So we're gonna start at the top with Georgia, who is the number one team. Their quarterback is Carson Beck. Saw some of his play in the college football playoffs at the end. He looked good. And it really, it signals a good ending it signals a good continuation of what they have been the past 2 years, where they've won the college football playoff, been the national champions, and they've really, really succeeded to a level that 8 years ago people might not have thought they would. And I'm really excited because if you just look at the Eagles, they've basically just been the Georgia pro team for defense. And I'm really excited that now Georgia doesn't really have any quote unquote stars on their team, but they have a lot of talent. And I think Kirby Smart said this, I think it was at SEC Media Days, but he said, we don't have a lot of stars, but we might overall be better than we were last year. And I'm really excited to see if that does hold true. So we'll see in the coming weeks. If people didn't have number one, as the number one team in the country as Georgia, I'm sorry to say this, but don't listen to them because they have no clue what they are talking about. Georgia is in one of my top 4 to make the college football playoffs. So they were always going to be my number one. I'm very high on them. I'm really excited to see what they can do for the season. Michigan returns a lot of production. They return like 81% of their production, and it is going to be very clear to anybody who watches them that J.J. McCarthy is not, some wilting violet quarterback, and he might have half the stats that Caleb Williams has, but Michigan's also a different team. Michigan also had undefeated season last year. USC didn't. So, things play out. And I think this year McCarthy's probably going to have somewhere around 32 to 3,500 yards and like 30 touchdowns, 27, 30 touchdowns, somewhere around there. I think they're going to pass more because they understand they need to throw the ball a little bit more to start bringing in those really highly talented, 4 and 5 star quarterbacks. I really think that this could be one of the best teams Michigan's ever put together. Does it go toe to toe with the 1997 team. Maybe not. Who knows? But they are going to be very, very good. Ohio State is number 3. Again, so good. Ohio State is going to be just fine with whoever they put at quarterback, because I don't believe they've announced it yet. They're going to be a very, very skilled team this year. They've got great defensive line talent. They've got a great offensive line. Linebacking is really, really good. Their wide receivers are probably their best position. Actually, not probably. Wide receivers are their best position. There is nobody better at this than Marvin Harrison Jr. There's nobody better at being a wide receiver than our Marvin Harrison Jr. And he has shown that skill last year. He's going to do it again this year. So I'm really excited to see what they can do. Alabama is number 4. I think they're a little too high. When I go into depth about them in another episode, I'll say why I think they're too high, but they've got a large controversy at quarterback. I don't want to say they have a problem at quarterback, because they have 3 quarterbacks that can play the position. A problem happens when you don't have a quarterback that can competently play the position. They have 3 that can competently play the position. Are they at the skill of Bryce Young? No. But, also Nick Saban said that they got too Bryce Young centric last season. And, that so many things relied on him to play so well that when, he had the mistakes here and there, things fell apart. And that I think they're going to start going away from that now. So it'll be really excited to see what they do. Like, I'll go in depth in many of these teams to talk about, more and more as the season progresses. So next up is LSU. I really like Jaden Daniels. I think that this could be a really good LSU team. Is it going to match up to the Joe Burrow LSU team? No. But is it a potential college football playoff contender? Absolutely. Their first game against FSU, I'm really excited to see, who comes out and who really performs and who really doesn't. I'm really excited to see how Jared Verse plays in that game as well. But it is, one of those things that I think LSU is going to have to struggle with. And if they come out and they play really well, the sky's the limit for them. If they come out and they play really poorly, there's going to be some hard questions to answer, because they have a lot of talent. And if they can't utilize that talent properly, they're going to start slipping in rankings in terms of recruiting rankings. Recruits might start decommitting, and they'll lose the talent that they have. So a lot is going to ride on LSU and Kirby Smart this season in order to prove that they are a team that is worth coming to play for a national championship. And I'm not saying they're not, but again, they didn't perform that people wanted them to last year. Everybody wants LSU to win a national championship. Not everybody, but a lot of people want LSU to win a national championship. And if they're starting to slip off, which I don't think they are, don't take this as I'm saying they're slipping off, but I'm saying if they do start to slip off and start to have less and less wins each season, they're going to start losing all of the talent that comes there, because talent wants to go where places win. We've seen that, and it is a big deal to these 18-year-olds that are coming out of high school and they want to go win a national championship. So they'll still have talent, just maybe not as great as they did. Next up, USC at number 6. USC is a candidate, I think, for the playoff. Last year, they were so bad on defense at tackling. I think they led the country in missed tackles on defense, and it was not conducive to having a good football team. They've brought in a lot of players, Bear Alexander, guys like that to really get things going and get things starting to improve on that defensive side of the ball. Lincoln Riley obviously did a huge emphasis on that side in the transfer portal, and I think they're also going to probably play some freshmen to improve. They weren't fit to tackle a middle school team basically last year. It was downright embarrassing, I would say, for USC fans that their team just could not tackle. So next up is Penn State. I think they're ranked a little too low, but I am very high on Drew Aller, and I think that he can play very, very well. I think that Penn State's secondary is highly talented, and it could be a strong point for their team. So I'm really excited to see what they've got there. Next up, Florida State. They bring back Jordan Travis, Jared Verse on the defensive side of the ball at defensive end. Could have gone first round, decided to come back. He needs to improve on the run defense. So I'll when they play LSU, I'm gonna look forward to see if they actually did improve on the defensive side of the ball. But it is what it is. If they didn't, they're gonna have to try and deal with that. I do think they are rated too high. The thing I have about Florida State is that they lost to, I believe, all of their ranked opponents last year. And their 6-game win streak at the end of the season came all against unranked opponents. Opponents that had not been doing so well in college football. So that's why I have a problem with them. They were beating teams that were losing to most people. So next up is Clemson. They got rid of DJ Uiagalelei. They said, hey, Cade Klubnik, you are our quarterback. Let's get this thing. They are a team that I don't think is going to surprise a lot of people, but I think could overperform as to what they are expected to do in terms of the talent on the not the talent on the roster. Sorry, in terms of like their line, their over under on the season. So I really think they are a team that could overperform what they're expected to do rather than underperform. Washington, Michael Penix Jr. is back. I think he had like over 4,000 yards passing last season. I think he has like 2,000-yard receivers coming back, and I'm really excited to see what they can do. They've got a lot of skill and a lot of talent on their team. The one thing I will say is this is no hate towards Michael Penix Jr. This is no hate towards left-handed quarterbacks or anything else. I am not the biggest fan of left-handed quarterbacks, not because I think they're bad or because I think there are no good left-handed quarterbacks. I'm not the biggest fan because I don't like the way that they look when they throw the ball. Sorry, excuse me. And that is the only reason. But I do like Michael Penix Jr. I think he's very good. I just think they look weird throwing the ball. Now, is that a hot take? Maybe. But I still think they look good, or they look weird throwing the ball. And I'm not going to ever apologize for it. Sorry, but they do. It is what it is. Most of the people in the world are right-handed, so it is a little odd when you see a left-handed quarterback. Next up is Texas. Now, Texas, I have made a vow, and I want you guys to take this vow with me because I have made this, and I'm going to try to abide by it as much as I can. And I didn't talk about them much last year because I didn't like the direction they were going. I talked about them in the Texas-Alabama game, but I didn't talk about them much after that. I have vowed to not overhype them, and I've also vowed that I'm not going to give them the benefit of the doubt when they have not deserved or earned that benefit of the doubt. There was a lot of expectations on them last year, given that they had Quinn Ewers, who's a really good quarterback, possibly even great. They played really well against an Alabama team that we all thought was going to be much better. Maybe not much better, but at least better than they actually ended up being. They have Xavier Worthy on the outside as a receiver, and I'm really excited to see what he can do. But they have not proven that they are in the contender for the playoff talks just yet. and I'm not going to put them there until they have proven that. And I think that's an okay thing to do. I think that's all right. Number 12 is going to be Tennessee with Joe Milton at quarterback. Obviously, Hendon Hooker left. I think he got drafted middle rounds. I think I can't remember 100%. I think he was like second or third round. I think he got drafted. I'm sorry, I can't remember. But he was hurt. He got drafted. He got drafted still, which is really nice to hear. But Joe Milton, if you can throw 90 yards, fantastic. But it only helps you on a football team if you can throw 90 yards accurately. And what we saw at Michigan at his time when he started there was he can't throw 90 yards accurately. Now, has he gotten better at that? Maybe. Have they worked on that with him last year? Maybe. I don't know. We'll have to see. But I'm not going to start touting him as a Heisman contender when the only real strength about him is that he can throw far at the moment. I haven't seen anything to suggest that he can throw 90 yards accurately. So before we start touting him as the next coming of Hendon Hooker, let's make sure he can accurately throw the ball deep. Decision making is also going to be a question mark. He's a little like Anthony Richardson. He has a lot of physical traits. Now let's see if he can put those physical traits to good use with his decision making and with his accuracy. So next up is going to be Notre Dame. Notre Dame, I'm really excited to see what they can do this year. I'm 100% a fan at the moment. I think that Sam Hartman being brought in from Wake Forest, Sam Hartman could be a dark horse Heisman again, like Michael Penix Jr. And I think that these are very realistic things to look at him and say, these are quite possible things that you can do this season. I think he could also elevate Notre Dame to a position where they might challenge for a playoff spot. I don't like that they're not in a conference and they don't have to have the risk of playing a conference title game. Excuse me. So I don't like that, but eventually, maybe they'll join a conference someday. The only way I can see them doing that is if they start getting left out of the playoffs because they're not in a conference, which I think they should. Next up is going to be Utah. Utah has Cam Rising returning, and he's also a possible dark horse candidate. I think it's a little less unlikely that he is, but it is a possibility for him. I think they'll likely get. I project that they'll have a 10-2 season. I think they'll lose to USC and Washington. I think they'll win against everybody else though. So, they've been perennially a good team. They haven't had a great team yet, and I'm waiting for them to have that great team. Next up is Oregon. Oregon returns Bo Nix as their quarterback. I do think they lost some things in the draft that they're not as readily able to replace. So I think Oregon's going to be a good team. I don't think they're going to be a playoff contending team, but I am excited to see Oregon. I also want to talk more about Oregon at a later time, so that's kind of why I'm being a little vague at the moment. There are a lot of things that I like about Oregon, but there are also a lot of things that I really don't like. So I'm also trying to get through these as fast as I can. So we've got 10 more left. So number 16 is Kansas State. Kansas State, in my opinion, is the most likely to win the Big 12, and I think that they are a highly skilled team for the Big 12. And I'm really excited to see what they can do with the talent that is on their team. TCU is going to take a big step back. They lose their They lose their offensive coordinator who went to Clemson. They lose their top receiver, and then they also lose their quarterback. Now, whether or not TCU takes a big step back or a giant step back is all going to rely on whether or not Sonny Dykes can take the talent that he has and say, okay, can we find a new Johnston? Can we find a new Max Duggan? All right, if we can find those two things, great. All right, we can finally put something together again. I don't think they're going to go to a playoff. They might go to their conference title game. But again, I don't know. Oregon State at number 18. Oregon State brought in DJ Uiagalelei. I think DJ Uiagalelei, sorry, I'm probably butchering his name. I think he's a overrated player for what his past has shown. Now, I also had that same opinion to a lesser degree for Bo Nix. I did think he was a little overrated, but I did see flashes of what could be really, really good play. And he has shown that he can be a really, really good quarterback. DJ Uiagalelei, in my opinion, has not shown that he can be a really, really good quarterback yet. So I am really looking to see if there's any sort of if there's going to be a showing this year that he can do that type of thing. So next up, Wisconsin. Wisconsin has Luke Fickell. They brought him in over the offseason. They hired him from Cincinnati. Cincinnati obviously went to the playoff a couple of years ago. The first G5 team to do that. Luke Fickell is going to completely reimagine Wisconsin football. It is not going to be the hard-nosed running team that we have seen in Wisconsin football past. And I think that's a good thing. I think it is a good thing. Wisconsin football needs to be revitalized. I think they'll probably get 9 wins this year. They have Tanner Mordecai at quarterback. He's a very solid quarterback. They have some good guys at the skill position. So I'm really excited to see what they can do. Oklahoma at number 20, I'm not so high on, but Oklahoma has been recruiting at a high level. So you really can't say too much bad things. You really can't say anything bad about them. North Carolina, Drake May returns. But other than that, I don't see why they deserve the 21st position. I mean, yes, Drake May is a great quarterback. He's second, in many people's opinions, he's second to only Caleb Williams, who won the Heisman last year. But I don't see the type of skill that deserves a 21st spot. I could be wrong, and I think North Carolina will do all right. I don't think they'll go to a playoff, or I think it's unlikely they'll also play for a conference championship. Ole Miss. Ole Miss has some issues, some very glaring issues, and I actually want to do a more in-depth video about those issues, although I can't remember the player's name, but like 2 years ago, he was like the second or third best receiver in the recruiting class. He was like 2 or 3 years ago now, and he was just released by Ole Miss. And I think they said it was because he was released for a violation of team rules, team rules, I think was the name. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name. But he was also released from his last team for that same exact reason. So again, I don't see Ole Miss having the skill that it has in the past. And then at 23, Texas A&M, they were 4-8 last year. I have very little hopes about them. Just like Texas, I'm not going to overhype them because they have not proven or shown to me that they can be hyped up to a point that, maybe they'll get in the crack the top 10. I don't think so. I don't think they're going. I think they're going to be better than they were last year. I don't think they're going to go 4-8 again. But Jimbo Fisher has a lot of, I think, internal problems in terms of the team culture that he has to figure out before they even, sniff the playoffs. So I think there's a lot of issues there. Although the playoffs are moving to 12 teams, so he could get in with all those issues. But who knows? Next up, I don't get this. Tulane. I don't get why Tulane is at 24. I don't get why they're above Iowa, who I think is going to be far better this year than they were last year. Tulane is a G5 school. They play in the same conference as they play in the MAC. They're in the same conference as like Toledo, who is they're a solid school, but they're not exactly known for their football. Tulane, I don't think they play. I think if you put Tulane and Iowa up against each other, Iowa wins, in my opinion. I really don't think that Tulane should be on this top 25 list. It's not a hate against G5 schools, but if I've said this before, and I'll say it. I'll say it till I die. Like, the top half of schools and like the bottom quarter of schools don't play the same game. They don't. They don't play the same sport. The top half just play it to a far better level than the bottom quarter do, really. And I'm not saying Tulane's that bottom quarter, but they're definitely not, in my opinion, in the top half. But I think they did have an 11-win season recently, which is fun to see. I always like seeing G5 schools overperform our expectations, because it allows us to kind of go outside this Power 5 bubble that we have, where we just think these are the only teams that deserve watching, and anywhere else, go away because we don't even care about you. Like, I remember when Marshall beat Notre Dame. That was such a fun game, because you don't expect a team like Marshall to beat a team like Notre Dame, especially when Notre Dame has consistently recruited at a higher level. But they did. And it was so, and Marshall is near and dear to my heart. And it was so much fun to watch them take Notre Dame down a peg or two. Now, they don't play anybody of, significance like that again this season, but it is really fun to see them do that. So maybe Tulane will be another 11-win team. I don't think so, but it's possible. Also, I will admit, I don't know as much about Tulane as I would like to know, but I will say that I know much more about the other teams that I've talked about than I do about Tulane. So next up is at number 25, and that is Iowa. Now, Iowa is a really interesting team because their offensive coordinator, I believe it's their offensive coordinator. It's either their offensive coordinator or their head coach has a contract stipulation that says I think he has to get 26 points per game, I think is the line, to keep his job, which I think is ridiculous. No, play to win. Don't play to get a certain amount of points. Play to win. And while I do think that Iowa's offense was awful last year, and it's going to be much improved with Cade McNamara and Eric All as the tight end over there, it still is a huge issue to me that you have a coach who's playing to get 26 points a game just to keep his job. No, play to win, play to go to a Big Ten championship, maybe even one day play to go to the playoffs. Don't play for a certain number of points. I hate that. It's annoying because now you're like always looking over your shoulder. Oh, I got 25 points this weekend. Come on. Really? Really, Iowa? Do better. Do better. So the next thing, so we've now finished the AP Top 25. I want to talk about the man, the myth, the legend, the Hamburglar, Jim Harbaugh. Now, Jim Harbaugh is in trouble with the NCAA because allegedly he lied about certain recruiting violations that took place over a COVID dead period, according to the NCAA. Now, his stance is he didn't lie, he just forgot. And I'm inclined to believe that he just forgot because most of it revolves around buying a kid a hamburger. And, if you ask me to, if you ask me to tell you every time I've bought a hamburger, I'm going to be like, you're crazy because I don't remember every time I bought a hamburger. I barely remember what I had for lunch last week. And now you're asking me to tell you over the past year or 3 years when I had a hamburger? Really, NCAA? Really? Come on. Don't do that. So he's being accused of lying during this dead period about buying this kid a hamburger during this dead period, which is why he's been termed the nickname the Hamburglar. But it's all a bunch of ridiculous stuff. They went to the NCAA and Michigan went to the Committee on Infractions and proposed that he miss 4 games this season. And I think Michigan kept trying to get that reduced. Oh, Leslie, can we do 3? Can we do 2 games? Can we do 1? Can we do no games at all or something like that? And I think the Committee on Infractions was just like, we're done dealing with you. We're throwing this deal out the window, and we'll have a hearing on it later on in 2024 is when it's supposed to happen. Now, Michigan released, I think yesterday, that Jim Harbaugh is going to sit out or is going to be suspended for the first 3 games of the season. Now, Michigan plays ECU, Eastern Carolina University, UNLV, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and I think they play, who is it? Oh, Bowling Green. Yeah, it's Bowling Green. So they play nobody, and nobody for 3 games in a row. It's a cupcake schedule. You could have, I could have my Dachshund coach the Michigan football team, and they would probably win that game. There's too much talent. There's too much experience on that football team to lose to any of those teams. So they're doing a self-imposed suspension on Jim Harbaugh. We'll see if that gives them anything with the NCAA. If the NCAA now drops it because of it, who knows? And I think Sharon Moore is losing a game as well. So, I think he's also going to be named the interim coach after Jim at the games. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see, does this wreck Michigan's football team or does this bring them closer together? I tend to think it'll probably bring them closer together. I think this team is going to be a bit fired up and really want to win a lot more because Jim Harbaugh said when this was announced, don't get bitter, get better. And I think that his team is really going to be taking that to heart and really be enforcing that a lot. So, and I think that's going to be it for this episode. Yeah, I'll talk about matchups and things to look forward to. In the next episode. It should be, I'll probably release it in the next few days or so. I'm not entirely sure. My schedule is kind of crazy. I'm going back to school, things like that. So, but definitely, I'm releasing this video tonight, and I'll be looking at other things to do in terms of the videos. We'll have to see. But I'm really excited that we have kicked off this season. I hope you guys keep tuning in. I am going to get a regularized schedule for you guys for next episode when I release it. I'm going to give you guys a regular schedule on when you can tune in and watch and listen. So please like, comment, and subscribe down here on YouTube. If I think this is also going to be going out on a few other different things. So if there's a button for liking or if there's a button for subscribing or something, please press it or please do something or give a review of some kind. It always helps me, and helps me continue making the content that I love about college football. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I really hope you guys have enjoyed this video. We've talked about the Hamburglar. We've talked about NCAA AP Top 25. So I'm really excited for this next season, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful night. See you guys in the next episode.